important topic this evening. Under new COVID restrictions, a priest now can be fined or imprisoned, or both, for saying a mass in public. The same applies to any minister of any religion that holds a public ceremony or worship, active worship. This is drastic, draconian and unacceptable, and raises questions about the constitutionality that the measures we took in here today are, from the fact that it is totally disproportionate. Totally. The regulations that have been no person shall leave their house or place of residence without reasonable excuse, and lists 25 exemptions or reasons why persons are allowed to leave their home. In relation to a minister or a religion or a priest or any clergy, they can only leave their house in line of duty to lead a workshop via technology, coming to go to sick call, or indeed to conduct a funeral or a wedding service. In relation to the public, there is no listed exemptions for attending a church for members of the public, and those are other who shall be an institution of any kind of public place of worship. There is no listed exemption for members of the public, as I said. We have now introduced penal offences for breach of these regulations. It's drastic. In Italy, in Spain, in Germany, and all over Europe, in the Netherlands, there's a limit of 30. So only 3 countries in the world, Saudi Arabia and North Korea, have banned religious services in public, and of course Mother Ireland. So we can't do enough to attack the church and destroy the people's faith. And I also appeal to the Minister and the Government. These churches and institutions have to be run, have to be heated, and have to make all the preparations for social distancing. And I salute the parish councils and the priests and everybody who helped, and the volunteers. They need financial support now, because they're not getting the contributions when people can't go to work.
Thank you, Deputy.
And they need support from the government, like any other business, because it's most important. The nourishing of our faith is hugely important to so many people.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Minister Rabbitte. Thank you.
Both deputies for raising this question this evening, and I think it's very welcome, the conversation, and I would thank you for doing that, because it's such an important matter. And earlier this week, the government took the decision to move the country onto level 5 of the framework for living with COVID, as outlined in the Resilience and Recovery Plan. This decision took account of a variety of factors, including the views of the National Public Health Emergency Team on the current epidemiology of COVID and the need to take a decisive action. The Government remains united in its resolve to tackle the spread of COVID-19. The disease prevention and control strategy that we have adopted seeks to prevent the virus spreading amongst our population at the greatest extent possible. You might call it ban, we call it protect. The basic public health advice and regulatory measures aimed at blocking the transmission of COVID-19 from person to person remain vital. From the beginning of the pandemic, we have emphasised the many simple measures that can be taken to do this. Keep your distance, washing your hands, wearing your face coverings where required, avoiding crowds. These measures do work. The Resilience and the Recovery Plan provides us with a framework to allow society and business to operate as normal as possible, inherent in this prioritisation of activities. This virus has had an enormous impact on our society in Ireland and across the world. Many people have lost their businesses, their jobs. Others, unfortunately, have lost family members. And we hear Deputy Redmond earlier talk about partners not being able to attend for appointments with their loved ones when they're going in for baby scans. I would like to express my deepest sympathies also to families on behalf as well of who have lost family members or friends at these very difficult times. We now have over 54,000 confirmed cases of COVID in Ireland, and the Government is concerned that, if it left unchecked, these numbers will only increase further. Speaking on a personal basis, I would like to assure the deputies that I am extremely conscientious of the burdens which have been placed on all members of society as a result of these restrictions and that have been imposed. Many people have been unable to live their lives the way they normally would, or participate in the usual rhymes of their communities. I know that for very many people in Ireland, being able to go to their local church to attend their Mass with their families and their friends is a major source of comfort and solace at what is a very difficult time in our country and indeed for the world. Unfortunately, all members of this House now know that the environment within which COVID spreads most easily is indoors, where a group of people are gathered. At this particular moment in time, we are doing our utmost to break the transmission cycle of the virus, which means we are very regrettably have to make every effort to reduce such gatherings. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the work that the Catholic Church and other faiths have done to put in place comprehensive guidelines to protect their communities, as Deputy McGrath has spoken about, in compliance with the HSE public health advice. And as we hopefully are able to move back down the restrictions from level 5 in the near future, these factors will be assumed over great importance. Consistent with level 5 restrictions, however, at this time, religious services have moved online, places of worship are open for private prayer only, and there are exceptions for funerals and weddings where 25 may attend. Importantly, under the regulations, ministers of religions are also permitted to travel outside the 5K to perform a service online, minister to the sick and conduct funerals or weddings. And my own parish priest, Father Michael, was discussing it with me this week, and Monsignor Cahill was also speaking it in Loughrea. But in our deanery, where bar 2 of our priests, the other 7 are over 65 years of age, and some over 70 and some over 80.
Thank you, Minister.
All right.
Deputy McGrath.
Can I remind the House, Concola, and remind the Minister that Article 44, Bunhook Éireann, acknowledges, and I quote, the freedom to publicly worship, and now you've made it a penal thing. Going back to the penal days, back to the 1840s, it's famine, penal times. The priests, and I want to salute them, the Franciscans in Clonmel, Father Michael Toomey, Father Brendan Crowley, you name them, my own parish priest, Father Carol Tismond, all of them have done such Trojan Herculean efforts to get Mass online, and volunteers put up line for them in cases as well and helped. And it's been such a trying time, but we cannot just walk all over the Constitution. What kind of a cabinet are you? We just can't do it. People are entitled to go to worship. They want worship for the solace. They never wanted it more. And we have a wonderful friary in Clonmel, as I said, and there's a shop adjacent to it where they sell mass cards and mass bouquets and lovely. And that's closed now because the church is open, thankfully, for private prayer. But they can't sell. It's an essential item to get a mass bouquet or a mass card for some loved one you can't go to their funeral. We're not thinking about these people, and you must put some kind of a package in place. You must put some kind of a package in place to support the churches going forward.
Thank you, Deputy McGrath. Minister, to conclude.
Again, I would like to thank Deputy Mattie McGrath and Deputy Collins for raising this important issue today. The Government appreciates that individuals in society have been severely impacted by the restrictions imposed on them this year. The Government has provided a range of supports to individuals, businesses and other sectors of society to limit the impact on their livelihoods and business. Ultimately, the Government remain united in its resolve to tackle the spread of COVID-19. As I said earlier, we have over 54,000 confirmed cases in Ireland. More importantly, we have seen an extremely concerned increase in the level of new cases being reported in recent weeks. We are now seeing 1,000 to 1,200 cases being reported over the most of the last week. The Government's view is that the level of community transmission is too high and that decisive action has to be taken now to limit the growth of the virus. The evidence is clear. It is the vulnerable in society who are most at risk from the virus. We are not alone around the globe in being impacted by the virus, and there are over 41 million cases worldwide with 1.1 million deaths. Many other countries have imposed very restrictive measures to limit the further growth of the virus. This Government has consulted with numbers of churches and faiths in relation to the pandemic. This has resulted, for example, in guidelines for the bereaved. The Catholic Church and other faiths have guidelines in place to protect their community in compliance with the HSE public health guidelines, and this is very welcome. Once again, I would like to remind the House that we each have the power to limit the impact of the virus by adhering to the public health guidelines. We succeeded in doing this earlier this year, and thanks to the collective efforts of all of us to adhere to the guidelines, we can do it again. And I would appeal to all deputies to show leadership on this issue, to promote adherence to the public health advice and to recognise that it is simply not a partisan issue. It is one in which we must all work together.
Many thanks, Minister.